So, hi Craig, thanks for joining me on Behind the Build. I'm Paul Drake, and this podcast is all about getting real insights from leaders in housing, manufacturing, and construction. So, here's how I'd like to structure our conversation. So, I want to understand your background, the trends you're seeing in the industry, whether that's technology, market shifts, operational changes, that sort of thing, and also the challenges that you're facing right now and where you'd like to take the business and organisation within the next 6 to 12 months. At the end, we'll wrap up with some insights that we both find valuable, and we're looking at about 30 minutes. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
Great. So let's jump into a bit about you then. So if you wouldn't mind telling me about yourself, what's your role? How did you end up in the position that you're in today?
Okay, so I'm Craig Glasper. I'm Chief Executive of Greenhill Housing, which is a small registered provider, mostly in northwest London, but also covering a kind of the top of the M25, shall we say, with a scattering of properties. Predominantly, we do independent living, so housing for older 55s. We've got one extra care scheme as well in Harrow in North London. My journey to joining this organisation, I think I would describe myself as a housing manager by trade. Started in the northeast and worked in most of the areas of the northeast as a housing manager. Kind of moved south 25 years ago, and again I've worked in a variety of housing associations of various sizes, from really small organisations of a few hundred properties to the G15, the big housing associations with over
Yeah.
100,000 properties in London. I've done probably every role in a housing association now over my time. Some of them not very well, I'll be honest. But yes, I ended up doing mergers and acquisitions for a number of years, which is kind of the flavour of the month again with the sector. But
Right.
it wasn't me. It wasn't what I enjoyed doing. I enjoy actually, selfishly, I guess, seeing an end result for the work. Working in a small housing association, you see people joining the association as staff members and as tenants for a variety of reasons, and you can kind of see the journey and you can see the difference that social housing makes to individual people. So it's, as I said, it's a bit selfish because you kind of you're getting a bit of gratification for that yourself, but it's what I enjoy. I enjoy the sort of hands-on housing management side of it all. But as a CEO of a small organisation, you've got to get involved in everything. So one minute you'll be talking to regulators and lenders asking for more cash to build, and on the next minute you're dealing with a door that won't open on a sheltered scheme, and everything in
Uh,
between.
I suppose it keeps your day interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I know lots of people say one day is never the same, but it really is true in a small organisation. You might have a to-do list, but you very rarely get through it because something will come up during the day that you need to deal with there and then.
Sounds very familiar. Could you give me a high-level overview of the organisation, and essentially what it does?
So
Briefly.
we're a registered provider of social housing. So as I still call them, we are a housing association. So we don't do as many products as our sort of bigger rivals. We tend to be more niche and specialist. So we do rented housing, predominantly, as I said, for people over 55 in and around London. Most of it's in Harrow, but we've got other areas as well. And we have a model where we really are local. So we have a member of staff on each of our schemes. So they'll be managing 60 properties each on average, which is really low for the sector. But that's our USP. We give a kind of more tailored service, and I think we get really good satisfaction levels because of that. Tend to shy away from doing anything around shared ownership at the moment or anything like that, because we're not specialists. We're specialists in what we do. We're good at doing independent living, and we think we're good at doing some of the more special projects. So even the general needs properties we have are really for specialist groups that require that little bit more support. So that's what we're good at. So that's what we keep doing.
You've already kind of alluded to it, but what does a typical day look like for you? Is there a typical day?
Honestly don't think. I know it's easy for people to say, and I think everyone does say it, but I don't think there is a particular typical day for us. So yesterday was a lot of work around communications and trying to talk about our tenant satisfaction survey that we've got going. So it started out with that as the plan, and then morphed into talking to some IT providers about how we could maybe embrace AI a little bit more in our organisation. And then it finished with me realising that we didn't have the data we needed to launch our new housing management system next week. So that's been delayed by a week. But it's really eclectic, you kind of, and sometimes it's difficult because one minute you're being strategic and trying to think about what the next 5, 10, 15 years hold, and the next minute you're realising that somebody hasn't done something that's now delayed a project. It's not.
I suppose that's always the challenge in the size of organisation that you are, that there's not enough people doing strategic jobs, or not strategic, but specific jobs, that you're always going to get brought back into that, aren't you?
I think that is the problem. We've got a small resource in terms of people, and at the moment there's I don't know what it's like where you are, but in London we seem to have a kind of an epidemic of coughs, colds, sneezes going round, and I've got 5 or 6 staff off, and that makes a big difference when you've only got 28 people in the business. It's you start to see that.
I think it started in the north and worked its way down, because that happened up here a few weeks ago.
It's your fault then, yeah.
It's our fault, yeah. I think it's weather dependent. Must have been the way the wind was blowing, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to sort of trends now, and in your industry. Are you seeing anything specific right now in terms of technology or operational efficiencies? I mean, you briefly touched on AI a minute ago, and that's pretty hot topic at the minute. Is it working its way into your industry?
Yeah, well, it is and it isn't. It's kind of, a lot of people talk about AI, and then I'm not 100% sure that they know what they mean when they say AI. And I think in some cases they don't mean AI at all. They mean workflows or something like that. Or they sort of bandying the term but not really understanding what it means for them. And our board are similar. They'll talk about AI, but that's probably not what they mean, and then they'll get sidetracked onto a discussion about ethics in AI. So we've done quite a lot of work, actually, even as a small provider, to educate the board on what the potential is, but what the problems might be as well for AI. So we're kind of going into things with our eyes open. As a small provider, we don't want to be trailblazers, if we're honest, because that costs money, and it brings a level of risk that we probably aren't comfortable with. But we are looking at it, and whilst we say we're not trailblazers, we're the first organisation to use a piece of technology to gather some of the TSN data. So we rolled out devices to all of it. So 300 of our independent living tenants now have little tablets in their properties that they can report repairs on. They can tell us whether they're okay or not, or do they need some help. And then we've rolled out the tenant satisfaction measures survey on the device this year to try and get an increased take up from people that we don't normally hear from. So it's just giving people an extra channel. So we had to push the provider to do that, because they weren't ready.
Yeah, it's amazing the sort of scale between the early adopters of AI and people that have really got no technology, and there is a massive void between the two, it would seem.
There is, and I think people underestimate the infrastructure for it as well. So it's kind of, you need the basics right first. And one thing we discovered was, we're trying to roll out sensors in some of our properties, only to find out that we couldn't really analyse the data in some of our offices because the Wi-Fi was fairly abysmal. So we've asked staff to go and work anywhere, and that they need to, and then the basics are not there. We thought they were, and then when we tested it, not good enough. So we've had to spend some money on the Wi-Fi infrastructure across all of our estates, and then that snowballs into other things like CCTV projects. But the technology's there. I just don't think we always embrace it very well. And I think there's so much more that can be done.
Yeah, it's a good point that the infrastructure isn't always there, is it? I mean, there's so many black holes in the data connectivity in the country.
Yeah. We collect a lot of data, but we lack the ability to analyse the data, and that's where AI could come in. But at the moment, we're kind of resource poor to even extract data.
Perfect opportunity for an AI agent to help you in that one.
Absolutely, yeah. We can see it, and that's where we'll be heading. It's just not as fast as I would like.
Yeah. I think we all share that same challenge. Are there any concerns or uncertainties within the industry that you'd like to share? Is there anything going on?
I think from a small housing provider point of view, that there's a couple of things you can see. Even this morning, another mega merger was announced that'll introduce, I think, an organisation of about 140,000 properties. I question how an organisation of that size can really provide a local and bespoke customer service, but maybe they can. It'd be interesting to see. But so there's always a feeling as a small provider that mergers are there and they might not be the best thing for your organisation, but people will be knocking on the door. And I think I can see why mergers are happening. The amount of compliance with the new regulations that are coming out, and we seem to be getting new regulations. It feels like on a daily basis. I know it's not, but it really does feel like that. And again, when you've got a finite team, every piece of legislation that has a requirement to measure something and prove something, that has an impact on your already stretched and finite amount of people. So I think I've been known to say that it costs more for me to prove compliance than it does to actually achieve compliance with some of the legislation. And I think bigger organisations might be able to absorb that, but we really can't. It usually comes down to one or two people that have to do it. And that technology could help. It could automate some of the processes.
Yeah, I was going to say that's just to touch on that point. I think it's a valid point, isn't it? If a human has to capture that information and do something with it, is there a way of automating that to make that,
Yeah, I think I've become an AI evangelist for the sector. I think, but
yeah. Well, there's a lot about it that works, but there's also a lot that you've also alluded to that it's not AI. It's just
it's not. It's a
system automation, isn't it? In its truest form, and it's it's badged up as AI, but the reality is it's not AI. But it goes back to that getting your fundamental framework right and your Wi-Fi connectivity right and all those sorts of things right, and then you build up to the wonderful AI over here.
Yeah.
Sorry, on the converse of that, the challenges. Do you see any opportunities that excite you?
So opportunities for us, we're trying to again, something I've been banging about. Anyone that knows me knows I've been banging on for years about collaborating more and organisations kind of maybe sharing services. And one organisation might do something really well whilst the other's not so good, and maybe you could share some of that. Not a prelude to merger, just really working together. I think that's starting to come to the fore a little bit more. So I can hear people talking collaboration now and sharing services, maybe back office services. And that kind of really interests me because I think, for everything that AI can do, working together with other people might be able to help as well. You might be able to, two small organisations sharing a finance function maybe. There could be economies of scale there. We might get a different calibre of finance director than we could afford individually. Those sort of things. Not that I'm saying that any of us need it, but working together, there can be synergies. You don't have to be in the same area anymore. It's a very hybrid world now, so you could work with colleagues in different parts of the country, and maybe that would alleviate some of the fears. So I think those are positives that have came out of adversity, I think. My other kind of interest for Greenhill is kind of diversifying a little bit, sort of. So we in the past we've provided management services for other organisations, so I think we could probably capitalise on that. If there's one thing we're good at, it's managing properties. So I can see some of the pension funds coming into the market looking for people, and they don't have to go to the big organisations. They could come to smaller, more local organisations who could help. Maybe it's better for us than it is for a bigger player as well. So a small injection of cash for a small organisation goes further than it would for a G15, for instance. So there's always opportunities.
Yeah. Is there a sort of framework set up for that collaboration then? How does it normally happen? Is it just a conversation?
So usually it's people that trust each other. So there's an element of getting to know the people and getting to trust the chairs and the chief execs of other organisations, so you can start working together without any hidden agendas. But I think it's widening now. I've had some interesting conversations lately with small to medium enterprises, small charities, and even a small builder about let's join forces, because we can do more together than we can as separate organisations. And there's levers that I can pull with local authorities as a registered provider that a charity can't, and vice versa. There's other elements of funding a charity can get that I can't access, or I'm sort of disbarred from charging that kind of level of rent. So there can be synergies.
Yeah. Touching on trends then that you're finding in your sort of organisational industry space, then is there anything that really impacts you or has impacted your business from a bottom line perspective? I know you touched on sort of legislation changes and having to make sure your compliance is right. Is there anything in that space that really does hit the bottom line hard?
It is that hits the bottom line. So compliance, we used to kind of mix that in with other roles, so it became part of other roles. Now in the last 2 years we've gone from no compliance people in the organisation to 2 full-time posts, putting more emphasis on compliance and dragging everything together in one place. And you could argue that it's probably a better service. Have the tenants noticed anything improve? I would question. I would say no. From a regulatory point of view, we're stronger because of the data and the information that we've now got in one place. That seems to be ramping up more and more. So people talk about damp and mould now. Airwab's law is live pretty much, and that brings another level of compliance and kind of pushes some of the timescales forward. And I think people are maybe acting sooner than they would have in the past, and there's good things to that, but there's a cost to it as well. It's not free to visit every property that alludes to damp and mould. And I think it doesn't help that there's a lot of negative PR about the sector as well. And a tenant sees, we get pictures of damp and mould through, and some of it, we need to get out and we need to send a surveyor. Others, it's a little patch behind a tap, and really they just need to clean it. So there's a big range there, but people see pound signs because there's a lot of negative publicity, and there's a lot of publicity around ambulance chasers and solicitors saying contact us, don't contact your landlord when there's a problem, and we'll get you loads of money. It'll be at least £2,000. So we get a lot of that, and it costs us money to fight these things off. And at the end of the day, the repairs that the tenant would have ordered get done, except they get done slightly slower because we've got a solicitor in the middle of it trying to get some cash out of it. It's easy for me to say it's not a win for the tenants, but I'm sure some of them do get some compensation. But we think we've got our act in order with that, and it's kind of galling to see an ambulance chaser come along and basically instruct tenants not to contact us, so the repairs are never going to get done if you don't contact us because we don't know.
No, this seems a bit morally wrong, doesn't it?
It's not right, and we are fighting it. We've got a solicitor on board now who specialises in basically chasing these firms off quite robustly, shall we say?
Yeah. But it's a crazy overhead that you've got to take on board for
It's
for
not a
what?
it's not a productive overhead. No, it's
Uh,
I could yeah, I understand why, we've all seen the documentaries on ITV and whatever, but you know it's not all like that, and these firms are really not helping us.
yeah. So moving on to the current state of your organisation, really in the market. So where does it fit in the marketplace? Would you say?
So it depends where it is. So in London, we specialise in independent living. So we're we see ourselves as catering for that kind of market, and we don't really stray beyond that in London. Outside of London, we tend to do more sort of special projects, so what we would call general needs, but they're usually targeted to the specific local authority's needs. So in one local authority, we deal with temporary accommodation on their behalf. In another, we house people with that kind of move on accommodation where they're coming out of support and moving into their own independent accommodation, and then if they manage the tenancy for us, then they get moved on to a more permanent solution. So some challenging clients in those areas, but as I said, we're quite good at that. We have a different staffing resource to deal with those projects, so a kind of a more generic housing service than we do in the independent living schemes. So that's where our niche is. I think our USP in London is kind of the amount of community engagement we carry out. So we've got lots of functions running. In the last 9 months, I think we hosted 457 different events, ranging from coffee mornings to kind of large scale, I'll say sporting events, but take that with a pinch of salt. But if you've ever seen anyone do an egg and spoon race on a Zimmer frame, you'll know it's
I
quite
haven't, but it sounds good.
but yeah, it's great, and when you consider the number of properties and staff we've got, that number of events is pretty eye-watering to manage to host them. And again, that gives us, not only it gives us great tenant satisfaction, it helps with us understanding what the problems are on schemes, because when people come together to chat over a coffee or a lunch or something like that, they'll tell you what's happening in the scheme and in the neighbourhood, and some of the things we don't know about because we're not there every day. So it kind of helps. It helps us to build a picture of what's going on.
Yeah, that's really good. You've touched on, I think you've touched on it a few times about what the organisation does really well. Do you get much in the way of feedback, consistent feedback from your clients about how well you're doing and what you're doing really well from their perspective?
We get, and we feed this to our board. There's a lot of pressure for us to talk about complaints and lessons from complaints and everything else. No one ever talks about compliments and what you do well. We get probably 4, 5, maybe more times compliments than we do complaints, and we don't fish for them. We get them. So you get our staff. We don't have a formal office in the organisation. Work from we have a hybrid approach, so you work from home if you can. If not, we use in our schemes. We've got 9 schemes with office accommodation there. They're all kitted out. Well, they are now with Wi-Fi, but they're all kitted out with screens and keyboards, so you can work from any of them. And what that does is it makes you more visible to the tenants. And when the tenants can see people coming in and out, whether they're finance people or whether they're frontline housing people, it doesn't matter, does it? It's someone with a Greenhill badge on. They're working there for the day. They get to know them, and we get feedback like that. we get compliments, that they've seen someone from what they call head office, even though we haven't got a head office. So it does work. It really does
Yeah.
work. So yeah, we get some fantastic compliments. We get suggestions for improvements. We get lots of feedback, but we do get a lot more compliments than we do complaints. Which is
Well, that's good. It's good. It's a measure that should be front and centre of the
I
board
think I think
meeting.
it should. I know there's a danger that people start fishing for compliments, and we've probably
Yeah.
got one manager that loves a compliment, and he actively chases, but he does a good job.
Nice. Where do you see the organisation going in the next sort of 6 to 12 months? Do you have a plan?
So the plan is we're in very advanced talks with collaborating with another organisation. It is a housing provider, but it's not a registered provider. It's more of a charity. So we hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll announce the collaboration with them, and that'll bring some opportunities for both organisations to share some of the staff and maybe to do something a little bit more creative in our respective areas. So I think that's going to bring a good opportunity for us, and I think it heralds the fact that people can actually work together without a hidden agenda and without the theory that it's going to end in a merger, because this
Mm.
won't. The geographies, they don't even overlap. We are completely apart in terms of geography, but we're quite aligned in the different things that we do. So I think that's a positive for us. We'll be talking to other people about managing on their behalf as well. So I think again that's an opportunity for us.
Mm.
And we're rolling out a new house management system. So I think that'll bring some savings, and we've got some technology bubbling away in the background. So again, that'll all start coming to fruition. It feels like we're about to sort of leap into that next step, I think.
Yeah. No, that's good. Do you see any real challenges with that? Has anything come to the fore that you expect to face?
Yeah, I think
When
the challenges that we've got are just the same as everyone else's. We have a finite resource, that we don't have endless pockets. We you know we do worry about the new demands with the legislation in terms of complying with it, and we'd like to do more, we'd like to build more, but the funding isn't always there for us. We're about to another thing we're about to do is refinance. So we're about to announce two new lenders who are coming on board with us. And again, I think that'll bring some opportunities. So we may well start buying some properties potentially out of London, because that's where we can afford at the moment. London prices are beyond us, I think, for now. And then we are going to be looking at some opportunities to regenerate a couple of our schemes as well that are kind of coming towards the end of the life. So I think it's growth, but with a small g. We're not going to grow at any cost. We have to keep our existing stock right before we grow.
Yeah. Thanks for that. So, from a personal perspective, then, what does reaching these goals in the next sort of 6 to 12 months mean to you?
See, for me, it's getting the organisation recognised for what it does and does well. I think the reason we're doing a little bit more PR on social media is because we try to attract staff, and in London everyone's heard of the big players, but they've not really heard of people like us because we're too small. So it's kind of getting our name out there, getting people to when they think of independent living or doing something a bit more creative, they think of us and not other providers. So from a selfish point of view, yeah, that's what that side's all about. But from the other side, it's about, we've launched some initiatives with a tenants, so a tenant offer for everyone, and then a specialised offer for the independent living scheme. So it would be, what I want to do is see that really embedded in the next few months, and seeing some results from the tenants, telling us that it's actually working.
Mm. Yeah. Great. So this has been fantastic, Craig, and I really appreciate being so candid and sharing your real challenges and opportunities that you see in your industry. And I really appreciate you taking the time and speaking to a fellow Northerner on a Friday afternoon in this really miserable weather outside. It's been a joy, and I've really enjoyed it. So thanks very much for
Yeah,
taking
thank
the
you,
time.
Paul. Yeah, thanks very much.
Thanks. I,